Hello, everybody, and welcome to the fourth episode of the CX channel's Synergistic CX Podcast. My name is Erik Brooks, host here on the CX channel, and we are the place where CX professionals converge. With me today, I've got Emil Tsankov and Cristiani Oliveira, our typical CX channel team. And today we have a very special guest, Keira Mackenzie-Smith from the Asia Pacific region. And she's the first guest on our podcast from that region. So we're very much looking forward to her insight and discoveries and so forth in that particular part of the world. This is also actually the very first podcast where we have four different continents and countries being represented all at the same time, and quite a wide spectrum of time zones too, which is fun logistically, but here we are. So Keira, would you like to share with our audience a little bit about yourself and your company, Learning Curve?
Hi, thanks, Erik. Great to see everybody. Learning Curve is a company that's been around in Hong Kong since 2010. We are a mystery shopping and training company, but we work not just in Hong Kong, we work all over Asia Pacific, from China all the way through to Australia. We work mostly with international clients in industries like retail, hospitality, food and beverage, and theme parks. And so very honoured to be here today to talk about one industry that we work in particular with. So looking forward to our discussion.
Well, great. So today we'll be discussing our latest industry study. Every podcast episode, we move through a different micro industry and focus on an ABSA-based study, which is the aspect-based sentiment analysis, where we take all of the a lot of the online reviews and ratings and so forth that are out there on the internet, scrape those and process those, run those through some sentiment analysis and AI, and see what people are saying about that particular industry and where their customer experience can be improved, where it's excelling, strengths and weaknesses in different parts of the world. And we've got some interesting data to see today. We've looked at various other micro industries on previous podcasts. We've looked at pubs, taverns, and ale houses as our flagship very first podcast that we did. And then we did do-it-yourself stores, or home improvement stores, as we call them here in the U.S. And we also did our third episode last time with bakery shops, which was really interesting. And this time we're looking at perfume and fragrance stores. So today's episode, we're going to be covering the main results from that study. We're going to cover the marketing mix, the customer journey, and the touch points of the customer experience in that particular micro industry. And we'll analyze our moment of truth. That's always the fun part that we get to in the middle, where we get to really see what the customer journey looks like and what the world thinks about this particular sector. And we'll talk about a starter voice of the customer survey for these types of perfume and fragrance stores. So when we get to the conclusion of the episode, we'll have a deeper conversation with our special guest, Keira, and she'll give us some additional insights on how to use mystery shopping and combine with training to improve the customer experience in this micro industry, and her other insights that she's had for this industry with her 19 years of experience here. The detailed results of this study will also be available in this month's magazine, so look for that on our website, www.cx-channel.com, or you can go find an actual recording of this podcast on YouTube, which will be posted online very, very shortly in different segments. So now we'll move on to the industry study itself. And I'll turn this over to Emil. And Emil, you want to walk us through this?
Absolutely. Thank you, Erik. So before diving into the industry study results, let's briefly talk about the sample. And our samples were worldwide geographic structure is separated into three primary zones: Europe, the Middle East and Africa, Asia Pacific, and the Americas. And then each zone is further broken down into specific regions as visualized on the smaller pie charts here. So in this specific case, our sample consists of 2,382 fragrance stores, and we are aiming at confidence level of 99.5% with a margin of error of 2.5%. And within the first segment, where we analyze online reviews and ratings, we actually analyzed a total of 11,448 online reviews based on the places of that sample. So that is the sample. Moving on to the star ratings. As you know, the star ratings are in online reviews is a system that allows customers to evaluate the product, service, or business on a scale typically from 1 to 5 stars. And each star represents the level of satisfaction. So in this industry, what we see is that the distribution of star ratings for fragrance stores reveals some regional differences. And these highlight variations in customer satisfaction across different geographical areas. More specifically, what we see here is that Europe, Middle East, and Asia region scores lower on the 5-star scale compared to the other regions. And conversely, the APAC region stands out with the highest percentage on the 5-star ratings, indicating stronger overall customer satisfaction. And if we look at the 1-star ratings, we see how this inversely plays out against the 5 stars, and how the 1-star rating and the 5-star ratings compensate for each other in these two regions. So that is the big picture. Then moving on to the critical review response time, which is a key KPI in customer relationship management, as it reflects the business's dedication to addressing customer reviews and customer complaints and issues promptly. What we see here is that nearly 74% of all critical reviews, and these are the reviews that are either not responded or reviews that are responded later than 72 hours, stay unanswered, highlighting major area for improvement. And then when we look at the regional distribution, we again see this is a relatively consistent across regions, meaning that the number of the unanswered reviews is very high, but the percentage in Americas is significantly higher than the percentage of the unanswered reviews in Europe, Middle East, and Africa. So that is the critical review response time overall KPI. Then diving into CRRT with comments versus without comments, we again see that companies are more likely to reply to reviews that include comments, and this has been a consistent trend across all the industry studies that we have done so far. But again, even if we look at the reviews with comments, the overall picture shows more than 70% of the online reviews stay unanswered. Again, major opportunity for improvement. It is a consistent trend that we see across industries, but the positive sign here, if you can say that it is a positive sign, that compared to the other industries that we have surveyed in fragrance shops, this KPI is actually slightly better compared to the other industries that we have surveyed so far. So again, critical review response times remains critically high across all regions. I guess this is the key takeaway that we can infer here.
Yeah, this is the 4th time in a row that we've seen just a massive number of negative reviews that nobody ever responds to.
Yes, indeed.
This is an obvious. Keira, would you agree? This is like an obvious place. Almost any company can improve their reputation with their customers just by responding to these negative reviews.
Yeah, and I work with a lot of companies where they have dedicated people who are responding purely. This is their job, is to respond to comments online, negative and positive. And I just think it's one of the most proactive things you can do, and it can really turn around a situation where perhaps a customer is unhappy, and just the message that it sends to everybody watching, everybody, looking at those reviews. I think it's incredibly important.
Yeah, and it's something else too. I don't think we've talked about this exactly, but I mean, with this large of a number of negative reviews, or a large percentage, you've got some significant opportunity in here to actually find some net promoters. Like when you have a bad experience and you make it right, and you go above and beyond to make it right, especially, you can turn someone from a detractor into an actual promoter, and that's ultimately the end game goal.
Yeah, and not only that, Erik, because in this segment, there is a great part of customers that are very loyal to the product itself. So if they don't get a good service in the store, they just move to the next store. I am a Chanel number 5 customer for 20 years. If I go to a store and I don't get a good service, I'll just move to the next one. It's that simple. So stores need to be very careful with the level of service because there is a vast majority of customers that they are very loyal to the perfume brand, not as much to the store. The store is just it's a channel, distribution channel to get to the perfume they already want, they already know they want to buy.
Mm-hmm. That makes sense.
So, well, I was going to comment on the fact that Asia Pacific and the Americas seem to be very identical from a distribution of critical review response times. So that is interesting. All right, so let's move to the next topic, which is the marketing mix. Here is where things become even more interesting. Obviously, mastering the elements of the marketing mix is crucial for businesses that aim to offer appreciable value to their clients, enhance loyalty, develop effective marketing strategies. And what we have seen is that businesses often face challenges in aligning the marketing mix to the complex marketing journeys across multiple channels. So what we're going to do here is we're going to dive into the marketing mix elements, and this is what customers actually talk or care about. So the way we dissect this and the way that we identify the proportions that we see in this chart is by analyzing the online reviews and ratings and assigning the bulking points to one of the 7 elements of the marketing mix. And this is what we see here. This chart indicates the distribution of the elements of the marketing mix. We use the 7P marketing mix as an extended version of the traditional 4P concept. And the 7P marketing mix includes the following 7 elements: product, price, place, promotion, people, process, and physical evidence. And this model provides a more comprehensive framework for businesses to evaluate and improve their marketing strategy, especially for the businesses that are facing customers. So what we can see here is that product, people, product, and place account for a little bit over 84% of all elements, marketing mix elements analyzed, with the people being significantly higher proportion than the rest of the marketing mix elements, which is to a great extent expected. But then when we dive into the marketing mix element features, we can actually see what do customers prioritize. So what we can see here that within the people element, sales staff attitude and sales staff experience and knowledge represent the bigger chunk of this element, with 27% and roughly 14% on average of the entire mix. Then in product, we see that customers prioritize product quality and product variety, with almost 10% and 8% conversations in the total mix. And in-place environment and ambience takes close to 7% of the total mix. So what we can conclude here is that, yes, people, product, and place are what customers talk about the most, but what customers prioritize, the top 5 topics, if you will, that the customers prioritize is staff attitude, staff expertise and knowledge, product quality, product variety, and environment and ambience. So obviously this is a great hint for us to take it further and to design voice of the customer surveys, mystery shopping programs, and dive deeper into developing better understanding about what customers care about. And actually, just to conclude this topic and to open it for conversations, when we add the experiences, what we can see is that approximately 24% of the reviews analyzed, specifically pertaining to people, product, and place, are critically negative. This means that the sentiment is below minus 0.5 on a scale of -1 to +1. So that 24% is consistent. What we see is consistency across this industry, along with the other industries that we analyzed. Within the topics that customers talk about, consistently, a quarter of the sentiment is negative, which opens the opportunities to dig deeper into identifying the actionable areas, which actually is the next opportunity. Knowing what customers talk about and what they care about in online reviews and ratings, the next question is how to build better understanding, more objective understanding. What are the other tools, methodologies that we can use to develop this better picture? So, Keira, your expertise here is critical, and it will be very interesting for us to hear your opinion on that.
So, with regards to sentiment, I mean, it's the perfume industry is all about emotional connection. It's all about personalizing experiences. You know, I mean, unless you're shopping for somebody, this is one of those moments where really the connection of the sales associate and the customer is imperative. I mean, there's a lot of, you know, taking customers on a scent journey. I know that's a very popular thing to do. And I guess it depends whether we're talking about sort of multi-brand stores versus sort of single brand boutiques. Both of them offer very different things. But if we're talking about single brand boutiques, then definitely we're looking at the experience, and to walk away from that with that feeling that I've really connected with the person, I've connected with the brand, and what I have is a very personalized scent to me. You know, this is almost unlike others. So I think this sentiment is more than many industries. I think, you know, cosmetics and perfume both have this same connection that's imperative.
Let me ask you a controversial question here. And this is something that within the CX team we constantly discuss internally. So online reviews and ratings and voice of the customer surveys measure the subjective perception, the customer thoughts and feelings, but in general, it is a subjective measurement tool, whereas mystery shopping and even internal audits, these are tools that are focused on objectively measuring the experience or the service design more so. So one of the conversations that we always have internally, and we always try to find all the pros and the cons, is when we talk about motivating staff. The question is, what is your opinion? Should staff be motivated negatively or positively on the results driven by the subjective measurements, or should that be done primarily or solely on the performance metrics which are derived from objective measurements such as mystery shopping?
Look, I think it's a combination of both. I mean, how we train our mystery shoppers. So, you know, for those who, I guess, if everybody's familiar with mystery shopping, but it's where we send in trained people who are very similar to the profile of the customers, regular client base, and they've got an objective survey to complete. They experience like a regular customer, and then they complete the survey. The survey, though, and I think in industries like perfume, is that they certainly are focused still on a lot of subjective measures. And while, yes, and I think, you know, combining both, I think is great, but I think when it comes to staff members looking for feedback, and I think almost the subjective can almost outweigh the procedural in this, in the operational, in this type of environment, because it really is about an emotional connection. It's sometimes that perfume purchase is almost one of those irrational types of purchases. We're thinking with our hearts, we're not really thinking with anything else much at all. And so really we're connecting to memories, we're connecting to really how that feeling of how that scent smells. So I think, yes, the subjective I think is incredibly important in this industry. And just from our experience, and especially now, I think more than ever, is that this is the differentiation, I guess, between your regular, maybe multi-brand or department store or counters versus versus the single brand boutiques. That's where they can set themselves apart, personalized, which can only be a subjective amount of feedback. I hope that's answered the question.
There's some interesting overlap here looking at this particular slide with what Cristiani said a minute ago, which was that the people here really are a major difference, because like she said, if you know that you're after a particular product, which obviously not everybody is, some people are coming in there for the first time trying everything, but if you know what you're after, it's the people that make the difference. Keira, would you say that when people lock on to like a particular scent, they're in that for a long time, they just consistently go after that again and again?
Yes, and I'm one of those people that has been wearing the same scent for a long, long time. However, I would still, within that brand, I would still explore. And I think that this is what I don't know for others, Cristiani, whether you can agree with this too, but I think you are willing to, once you find your scent, you lock onto it, because people start to comment and they say, wow, that's a lovely scent, it smells fantastic. So you sort of stick with it. But I think brands have got, I guess, a leeway to then explore within that. So once they've looked at the different notes within the perfume and within the fragrance, then they can sort of send you off. And that's what the customer journey is all about when you're in the store, is then introducing you to others, because there may be something even better that perhaps you haven't come across yet.
What I find interesting here too, and this really I think reinforces a lot of what we're all talking about. The people here, I think, is a larger portion than it's ever been in any of the other industries that we've looked at so far. It's almost half of what people are talking about, customer reviews and ratings. And the product is a huge, huge chunk of that too. The product has been big in the other industries, but I mean, between those two together, you're almost at 3/4 of what they're talking about. And it's not so much the other components like the ambiance and the even the price. It's there. It's definitely represented, but it's not a major component like it with some of the other industries.
Perfume is expensive since forever. But what I see here as well is two things. One is that the perfume is something that's seasonal as well. So if it's Valentine's, if it's Mother's Day, if it's Christmas, you are looking to buy for someone else. So you need help choosing the right product for a friend or a family or someone you love. So of course, to have the right help and recommendation from the staff is really important. And the second thing is that we know that the younger generation is much more open to try new things. So in order to do that, of course, they are much more willing to interact with staff, because they are not looking after a particular product as someone from Gen X is, as I mentioned before. So here, the knowledge of the staff, there are trends that are very specific. Now it's apple smell, or it's more honey, it's more flower, it's more amber, it's more sandal. So they really need to know the characteristics of the perfumes in order to recommend. They are looking for things that are animal cruelty free. If it's something that's organic, there are lots of characteristics that staff really need to know in order to make this new generation happy about a new product. So it's seasonal products, and the younger generation, they are looking much more for information from staff. And of course, as I said before, if you're really looking for a particular product and the staff tries to convince you to try something new, maybe you're not with a lot of patience to interact with the staff if you're trying to sell you something that you really don't want to. So that's why I think it's the role for why the people here is so important.
Agreed. And there's also regional, particularly in Asia. I mean, I don't know so much necessarily in Europe. I would imagine it would be the same. But what a lot of the brands are doing is actually creating scents around the location itself. So, for example, in Japan, they're often using scents like cherry blossom or green tea. These that are very familiar with locals, and then so it's up to then the staff to then be promoting these and perhaps finding that sort of endearment that might come, or the tie and the connection that might come with a local shopper with a local scent. Interesting.
But still, I just want to highlight what Erik said. It is people is taking a great proportion, but within people, if we take attitude, expertise, and knowledge, these staff attitude and then expertise and knowledge, these two together take a little bit over 40% of all conversations. And I don't think that we have seen this concentration in two priorities in any of the industries that we have discussed so far. That's certainly unique to that micro industry.
Mm-hmm.
Just wanted to highlight that.
Absolutely, and the expertise here also is not only the product itself in terms of the composition, but the perfume is also the history of the brand, where the brand comes from. It's a legacy of the brand, and this is really important. The associates need to transmit this type of information for customers. Otherwise, why should you pay €100 for a perfume this size?
True. There's also just such a personal connection when it comes to scent. I mean, because like with cosmetics, with perfume, in fact, the sales associate has to assist. They're spraying, they're giving you samples, they're spraying sort of samples onto your skin. So it is a very personal experience anyway. So I think that's why I would imagine these areas stand out over other industries.
Yes,
indeed.
It is. And it is also, to be able to communicate that brand has a personality. When you buy a perfume, you are buying something that becomes part of your personality as well. That's the whole thing about, customer experience. You are bringing something into your personality.
All right. So just to wrap up this first topic related to the marketing mix, key takeaways. Respond promptly to critical reviews, obviously focused on efficient review management as a consequence of that, focus on people, but also product and place in that micro industry, enhance staff experience, product quality, variety, and ambience. This is from a prioritization standpoint, and address critical feedback in key areas. So these are the key takeaways so far.
Yeah, it seems self-evident there. That concludes part 1 of our 3-part series here for this Synergistic CX Podcast episode. We're focusing on perfume retail stores. Come see part 2.